We want to trade with Russia, we want to trade with all countries of the world. We don't believe in being enemies of somebody's enemy. No, we want to make our own enemies, not fight other people's enemies. This is our doctrine. When there was the Cold War, one day they asked me a question. Are you pro-East or pro-West? I said, you must think I am an idiot. Why do you think my main job is to be pro somebody? I am pro myself. And I deal with all other people according to how they relate with my own interests. These people think we are stupid. Such a question is an idiotic question. It's not my job to be pro-East or pro-West. I am pro myself. And I deal with people according to how they relate with me. So, if you invite me to talk, you do so at your own risk. I can talk for a long time.
Hello internet, hello beautiful people, welcome back to the channel. So let's talk about matters business. Let's talk about matters the East versus the West from an African viewpoint, from an African perspective. So it's now almost common knowledge that Africa is not bowing to the West business-wise anymore. It's not bowing to Europe. It's not bowing to America anymore, and it's actually politically and economically aligning itself with the East, or just to be precise, China, the world fastest growing superpower. And for obvious reasons is that China is pumping billions of dollars into the continent of Africa. For example, here in Kenya, they build an over 300 kilometer modern railway line, connecting the two most, like the biggest cities in Kenya, at I think over 3 billion US dollars. So something that, and many more other things that, of course, the Chinese or China has done to Kenya, and not only in Kenya, but in almost all African countries. And of course, it must be noted that this is not coming as be out of maybe a donation, or because they have too much, or because but of course they have they're looking at, it's kind of like they're buying allies. China, of course, there's always a gain. They're looking up to gaining something from Africa, and Africa in itself is also a growing powerhouse in terms of production. And that Africa is the richest continent, of course, in terms of natural resources. So much of that is still untapped, and as well as agriculture is also a big part of Africa. Africa has a big potential that needs to be tapped into. And something else is, of course, manpower is, Africa is the youngest continent, projected to just take over in terms of manpower, when all those other people are now aging, and they need strong people, young people to Africa will definitely will be the supplier. So China is also is obviously looking into all these potentials, and wants to tap into that. So another powerhouse, of course, that has been there for ages, kind of like a sleeping giant, is Russia. Of course, Russia is also part of the East, kind of like the idealistic East, of course. And you can see that now Africa is also aligning politically with Russia. Take the examples of the countries of Burkina Faso and Niger, that have literally are chasing away France, who has been their colonial imperialist. Do not want to actually call them colonial masters, and adopting Russia and as their ally, in terms of military affairs. And obviously, the West is not happy with this. And so, here is a video that I want us to watch of the president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, giving us, details into why probably Africa is falling for the East, or is shifting from the West towards the East, or the new friendship or bromance between Africa and the East. So let's watch this video together, and we shall come back and talk about it. So here is the video.
For us, we are polite people. We don't lecture people. It is the Europeans who have got the bad habit of lecturing an experienced man like me. You find I'm getting lectures from novices. If you look at our democracy, it is one of the most advanced. We have got so many elections. Now we are having elections for youth, for women, for disabled people. You don't have those in your country. So I can say that your democracy is shallow, but that's your own business. We don't want to impose it on other people. So if the other people could also be a bit polite and just know that we know what we are doing, it will be good for everybody.
Do you by now prefer other governments like the Chinese or some Arabic countries over the Europeans because they are lecturing less and they just do stuff?
We don't prefer, but they don't waste our time, for sure, that's for sure. They don't waste our time, because to have somebody telling me something which I know better, and out of politeness I need to listen, to talk, to answer, instead of saying, go to hell, and I walk out. Of course, we waste a lot of time. The Chinese waste less of our time, for sure. They come on business, a road, a factory, to buy something. Management of our affairs is ours. They don't interfere in ours, we don't interfere in theirs.
As you're such an experienced leader, if you look throughout the last years, maybe even decades, do you see that there is some sort of change, that the role of China in Africa, not only in Uganda but in Africa, is growing, and that Western powers, the Europeans, the Americans, are rather disappearing? Or how do you observe the situation?
The problem we have is superficiality. Do you have that word in English? Superficial. Mm-hmm. The Western political leaders and thinkers are very superficial. It's just really tiresome, very superficial. You see, when the communists, I can give you some little history. I will not charge you. I will not charge you money. This is for free.
Thank you very much.
When the communists took over China in 1949, we were colonies. The whole of Africa was colonies. Not colonies of China or Russia, colonies of Europeans. Europeans are the ones who had colonized us. So when Mao Zedong took over in 1949, immediately he gave us support. to kick your cousins out. For you, the Germans, you had already been kicked out by your cousins, but your cousins were still here. So Mao Zedong, we shall never forget Mao Zedong, because he gave us support immediately. In 1917, when Lenin took over Russia, again we got support from the communists. The first African liberation movement was formed in 1911. This was was it 11 or 12? This is the ANC of South Africa. So when the communists take over Russia, they support us. Support us against who? Against Europeans. Who had done what? Who had colonized our country. And who had ravaged Africa with slave trade for centuries. And that's how we kick out the Europeans. Kick them out of, some of them went away peacefully, like the British left here peacefully, but not before the Mau Mau. There was Mau Mau in Kenya. By 1963, 36 African countries were independent. But there was another 20 which was still under European colonialism. This included Mozambique, Angola, Guinea-Bissau, Ian Smith, a character called Ian Smith, was in Zimbabwe, Rhodesia. Then we had Namibia. Then we had South Africa itself. So by 1963, a part of Africa is independent, a part is still colonized. So the African countries tell the Europeans, go away from the remaining part of Africa. If you don't go peacefully, we shall throw you out by force. They thought we were joking. The Chinese supported us, and the Russians. We kicked the Portuguese out of Mozambique. We kicked them out of Angola. We kicked them out of Guinea-Bissau. We even liberated Portugal itself from fascism. Wait, let me tell you. This is a free lesson of history. No tuition. You don't have to pay me tuition. So, this is the history of Africa and China. It's not a new history. Even when China was still very low in terms of economic development, but because of ideological, so they supported us.
So you say China?
Just hold on. So now that China has become a richer country, they have now upscaled their. Maybe I can give you some example. In 1964, Zhou Enlai, the Prime Minister of China that time, visited Tanzania, your former colony, and pledged to build a railway line from Tanzania up to Zambia. It was called Tazara. And they built it. They built it. They built it. They were still backward economically. They were not very, very, very rich, but they built it, the Chinese.
The Tazara Railway, officially known as the Tanzania-Zambia Railway Authority, is a significant infrastructure project between landlocked Zambia and the port of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. The railway spans approximately 1860 kilometers and remains a major symbol of Sino-African cooperation.
So now that they are much richer, they are upscaling our cooperation with them, which was originally political, diplomatic. Of course, we were also supporting China in the UN because the Western countries had kept China out of the UN, out of the Security Council. So we were supporting them to come to the Security Council. So therefore, the cooperation between China and even Russia with Africa is not new at all. It is historical. It started with the anti-colonial.
Oh yeah, okay. So you have heard the lectures from the old man, that is the president of Uganda, and I think the West also knows the truth, knows that this is happening, but maybe they are either so proud to accept that the shift has happened, the shift is happening, and it's of course going to have an impact on the global dynamics, especially when it comes to power and politics and business. Or maybe they have not just put up enough in terms of combating the war, the information war, or as they would put it, the misinformation war from the other side of the globe, the opposite side of the globe, the east, for example. So I'd also really want to note that when Europe was um, dividing the spoils in Africa during um, the scramble for Africa and division into European colonies, Russia did not take part in colonizing Africa. So Russia has no African blood on their hands. That must be noted. And as much as anything else, I mean, all other factors constant, Russia has never taken part in the colonization of Africa. So when Africa starts working with, because now what's happening is there is this great insurgence of young African leaders and African people and African youths that are not, you know, uh, kind of like, the decolonization of the mind, whereby they see that for the longest time, our great grandparents and grandparents and even our parents, have been so colonized that they have always, bowed to the West. Now they are realizing that it's about who has a better deal. It's about who brings a better deal to the table. It's not about who was your former colonialist, or who was here and who was not here. It's about it's just on a neutral ground. Do business with whoever that's willing, whoever that deserves to get that opportunity. And the West is obviously not happy about this. Some time back, when African presidents went to Russia to negotiate about African matters, I think the people from the West, it was France. Someone came out and said they were going to beg. So if Africa goes to Russia, they're going to beg. But if they go to France or the United Kingdom or the United States, then it's business, it's not begging. Then clearly that is hypocrisy of, the highest order. So that is just the little I wanted to share from, the president of Uganda. And clearly there are so many reasons why Africa is working, more with the East now than the West. And this is going to continue. Africa must just be careful, because after all, everybody and anybody just want to take advantage of Africa's potential. But then still, Africa must do business with whoever that deserves to do the business with them, regardless of whether it's China or the United States of America. it doesn't matter. Whoever comes with a better deal then is who Africa should do business with. And be careful, because as for Africa, the enemy is always going to be, coming from the east, the west, the north, and the south. So Africa must also be very, very careful. Yeah. So share your thoughts in the comments, and like this video, share this video. But most importantly, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please support this channel by subscribing to this channel. We have come to the end of this video, and so until next time, see you in the next video. Peace.